Righty then.
Okay. Yeah, 1 second.
Yes. Do you need me? Okay.
Are we ready to get started? Or do you want to give it another minute, Kim?
I think we're ready.
Oh,
We've got 25 people on. I think that's pretty much everybody.
Okay. Can we just ask you if, to mute yourself? There's some little background noise and a little feedback, so that will help everybody and make for a better recording as well. So welcome everyone. It's good to see you, and we'll soon be meeting some of you for the first time. My name is Mary Francis, and I'm one of the senior consultants with FaithX. And with us today, we also have Ken Howard, who is the creator and owner of this FaithX project, and then Steve Matthews, who's also one of the senior consultants. So we have a few things to accomplish today. These are our goals. We'll do a little checking in and then review our timetable, see where we're at, make sure that we have everything that we need from the diocese. We'll discuss our process and time frame for selecting congregations and provide you with a resource for that. And then also go over some of the criteria that we would like you to be considering in selecting congregations for the VIP. And we'll finish up with some time for questions and answers, but you're always welcome to pop a question into the chat. If for no other reason, so you don't forget it and we don't miss it at the end either. So with that, I'd like to start us off with a scripture and a little reflection time. Yes, so this is being recorded, and you will get a link to the recording, as well as access to everything that's linked in this recording. So, okay, so this is from Mark chapter 2, 1 through 12. When he returned to Capernaum after some days, it was reported that he was at home. So many gathered around that there was no longer room for them, not even in front of the door, and he was speaking the word to them. Then some people came, bringing to him a paralyzed man carried by 4 of them. And when they could not bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, they removed the roof above him. And after having dug through it, they let down the mat on which the paralytic lay. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Child, your sins are forgiven." Now some of the scribes were sitting there questioning in their hearts, "Why does this fellow speak in this way? It is blasphemy. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" At once Jesus perceived in his spirit that they were discussing these questions among themselves, and he said to them, "Why do you raise such questions in your hearts? Which is easier, to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Stand up, take your mat, and walk'? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic, "I say to you, stand up, take your mat, and go to your home." And he stood up and immediately took the mat and went out before all of them, so that they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this before." So I know I'm not alone. Ken and Steve and I, we all do other things besides this VIP program, right? And one of the things that I do is some coaching and facilitating around resiliency. And I was thinking that this scripture text is really connected to resiliency, right? It's an example of reasoning and problem solving, which we're all going to need a lot of over these next few years together. So Jesus, we're told, is at home in Capernaum. And once the word is out that he's back, people swarm his house. There are people who followed him home, people from Capernaum, his neighbors, his friends and family, so many people that no one could get near. And along comes this group of friends carrying their friend who's paralyzed. He can't get there on his own. He needs their help. They can't get the door in. They can't get in the door with the stretcher, but they would not be deterred. Do you have times like that when you just won't take no for an answer? I can kind of be that way. Hearing no just means that I have to circle around to find the back door. People in authority don't always like it when you circle around to find the back door. I remember getting scolded for that during my candidacy process. When something just wouldn't work out the right way, I found another way. But personally, I think problem solving like that is a skill, a gift, not an issue. It often shows that there's more than one way to get things done. And that's why I like these friends. They won't take no for an answer. And they circle around the back. They find the ladder to the roof. As you probably know, in those days, in that part of the world, a house like this would have a flat roof and a ladder. And people would climb up there to enjoy a cool evening breeze or even sleep up there on a hot night. So they climb up the ladder. They remove a section of the roof and lower their friend down. I have to say, I was right there with them on the circling around part and the climbing up part, but wow, opening the roof, like that was really courageous. That was really brave, definitely out of the box thinking. Maybe the kind of thinking that comes from being in a group, from having the support of others. It seems to me that this story is showing us that some out of the box thinking is a good thing when faced with a wall of people, a wall of problems, a wall of the way we've always done it, a brick wall. So as we enter into our time today, I would like you to think about the people in this story: the paralyzed man, the 4 friends, Jesus, the religious leaders. So where do you find yourself when faced with a problem? Who do you relate to in this story? How do you find the resources you need to move forward? Who do you turn to when you need help? So if you would just put in the chat, who do you relate to in this story and why? And we'll review some of your answers. Steve, for putting that in there. Barbara's one of the friends with the crowbar getting a hole in the roof. Good. We need people like that. John relates to the friends because they are creative and resourceful, faithful. Yep. Margaret, also a friend. Dwayne, also the friends, trying to find a way. All right. Kirk relates to Jesus, being astounded by their faith. Yes. He's also a friend. Okay. All right. Well, I want to just invite you to continue to reflect on that. I think we will have lots of opportunities in the next few years together to be problem solving together. All of us and some of you in your groups. I like the find the ladder, look for an option kind of gal. And we can all see what resources we have when we kind of have a collective mind and turn to one another. So I would like to now invite the diocesan team leaders to introduce your team members. And I want to invite the team members to put in the chat why you said yes to this invitation. So whichever, you know what, Julie, you're in my little side panel, so I'm going to ask you to go first.
Happy to do that. Could we go to full screen while we're introducing people?
Sure.
Hi there.
There we are.
So I'm Julie Wakely. I am the canon for the ordinary in the Diocese of Northern California. One of our team members is at the Forma conference right now, and one is going to be able to join us a little bit later. But I am happy to introduce the folks that are here. Just looking to see where folks are showing up on my screen. Margie Harrison Smith is the Vice President of our Board of Trustees, and I am delighted to have her on board. Mark McMillan is on our standing committee. Bob Hall is also a member of our Board of Trustees. I'm looking for Cindy Woods. Where'd you go? There you are. You have a hat on, you're hiding. Cindy Woods is an awesome deacon in the very northwest of our diocese. And you'll learn more about her. She's a rock star. Another rock star is my executive assistant, Maria Ramirez, who did an amazing job getting all the data into our first level of information. And not here is Mac Olson, who is our missioner for church life. He's at the Forma conference, and Annie Mertz is part of our congregational development team. She is a rector in the southwest corner of our diocese closest to the Bay Area. That's us. And Margaret Fisher. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And another member of our congregational development team and a congregational consultant in our diocese is the Reverend Margaret Fisher, who is here from Redwoods country. I'm sorry, Margaret.
Okay, it took me forever to get on.
Yeah,
Sorry
all of
about
us.
that. Yeah, we had a little confusion about that. Mary Sillerud, how about you?
I'll do what I can with this voice. You'll just
Yes.
enjoy it. We have two people missing, or three actually. Christopher Lynn Payne, who is our canon for congregational development, and Margaret Shadow, who is our property manager, are out working with another FaithX related project with Stewardship Realty, which is doing a big pioneering effort about asset work in our congregations here in the diocese. I'm Mary Sillerud. I'm the interim canon to the ordinary. With us today are Kristen Krantz, who's director of our College for Congregational Development and rector of St. James Mount Airy, and also one of our consultants. We have John Guidell, who is one of our Fresh Start resource people and is retired interim in our diocese and was a counterpart to me when I was in Washington as a transition officer in the Diocese of Michigan at one point. We have John Curley with us, who is from Christchurch, Columbia, just down the street from my house, and one of our congregational consultants. And we also have Pam Cochran, who is president of Province 3, as well as convener of our Congregational Vitality Committee and one of our consultants. We're missing Monique Ellison, who's been serving as chaplain to our Episcopal Search Committee, and I think maybe getting a little downtime right now since candidates have been announced. But that's the team.
All right, thank you so much. And Andy Andrews from Mississippi.
Greetings, everyone. I am the missioner for Beloved Community and Congregational Vitality. Honored to be with all of you, and I'm proud of the team that's emerging in the Diocese of Mississippi. The Reverend Elizabeth Malfers is a vicar at St. Albans, or rector at St. Albans, and she's one of the bright light clergy leaders in our diocese. Dr. Barbara Jones, who's my former senior warden at St. Timothy's Episcopal Church in the northern part of the state, very wise person, and Margaret McClarty, who is a pillar of St. Andrew's Cathedral here in Jackson, and glad to be walking with all of you. Thank you.
We're glad to be with you as well. Kirk Berlenbach from Pennsylvania.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Kirk Berlenbach. I'm one of the canons for growth and support in the Diocese of Pennsylvania. That's roughly equivalent to congregational development, just our particular term for it. Have most of my team here, but several can't be here today or will be joining a little bit later. So with us today, Dina Harvey is showing her 49ers spirit, even though she's in Philadelphia with her name there. And she is a member of St. Gabriel's, one of our mission congregations, and has done a vast array of things in the life of the diocese for many years, and is one of the wonderful pillars of our diocesan life. Father Sam is the rector of St. Peter's in Phoenixville and the dean of the Valley Forge Deanery, one of our regional convocations. Dwayne Howard is the youth minister at St. Anne's Abington and does a terrific job with that. And Michael Ruck, Father Michael Ruck, is the rector of St. Philip's in New Hope and the dean of the Bucks Deanery. Hopefully joining us soon will be Jay Walton, who is the rector of All Saints in Torresdale, which is the very northern tip of the city of Philadelphia. Not able to be with us today is Father Chris Exley, who is at Forma, and then my counterpart in Congregational Development, Growth and Support, the Reverend Betsy Ivy. So that is our team.
All right, thanks, Kirk. And Sean Rutledge, you there, Sean?
I am. My video is refusing to turn on, but I can introduce some folks that are here from Arizona. We've got the Reverend Devin Gillespie and Mary Grace Gannon and the Reverend Mike Halley. We've got a few folks who weren't able to be here today because we have our anti-racism training today. So it was scheduled months out and just collided.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for that. And I'm sorry, I can't see the agenda. So who am I turning it over to?
I think you may be turning it over to Steve.
All right, Steve.
Let me go back and pull it up.
And you want me to share my screen or do you want to share it?
You can share. I'm a sharing kind of person.
All right. I know that about you. So here we are today. You all will get a copy of these slides as well as a recording for those of you who have questions. And we're just going to move through the agenda. Like Mary said, there's a time for questions and answers at the end of the call, but please feel free to add anything to the chat along the way. We wanted to spend some time today just talking a little bit about team member responsibilities. And before we start, Mary, I'm wondering if you would read some of the responses from people in terms of why they said yes, just to kind of grease the wheels for this piece of the conversation.
Sure. So I've said yes because I've been a member of a small congregation for over 15 years, currently the senior warden. Proud of the outsized impact that we're able to make. But I know that in order to endure, we have to look at new ways to encourage sustainable growth. You know, Barbara just says yes when Andy asks, so there's that. I want the Episcopal Church to grow so others may be as blessed as Mary Grace is. Passionate about small churches, very much needed project at this time. Working with resilient folks in my local church and deanery, see many who are numbed from our challenging times, looking forward to finding resources and inspiration to serve better. And it's a unique opportunity to serve on the front lines of growing churches. Yes, that it is.
Thank you, Mary. Sometimes in my coaching and consulting, I'll just ask the question, do you believe that your better days are still ahead of you? And that's a pretty bold question to ask in the current climate that we're in. But I hear a lot of positivity with regard to your answers and why you said yes to this invitation. And we really do believe that our best days can be ahead of us as long as we are savvy and smart, full-hearted and courageous, and as we move forward. And it sounds like there are a lot of those kind of people on this call today. We wanted to spend some time just reviewing the responsibilities of the various groups. I'm sorry, my screen keeps kind of flipping out on me, but I think you'll be able to read it. We'll start with the bishop, the diocesan bishop. As we started this, we said this was very important to have that person who has an oversight over the churches in the diocese, who is holding the vision, in some respects helping cast the vision for the diocese, to say yes to this and to support this work is really important. And some of the responsibilities include knowing the participating congregations and maintaining contact with each one at least quarterly. The second, creating space and diocesan structure to notice, to name, and to nurture what VIP churches are learning and accomplishing. We want feedback loops. You'll see this time again, whether it's on the diocesan or the local church level. How are we creating a learning community?
Steve, apparently some people are not seeing your screen. So if you're not seeing Steve's screen, could you please raise your hand either with the little icon or physically raise your hand, so if we know if it's just limited to one or two people. Okay, it looks like most people are seeing it.
We can shift and go to Ken's if that's better.
Happy to.
It's just Sean who's having problems all together today.
This is video.
Okay.
Okay. We'll just keep rolling, and
Okay.
Sean, you'll get a copy of the recording, so hopefully that will.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure, no problem. That's good. It's important. The bishop also appoints, so the diocesan project team leader appoints or hopefully invites, hopefully does in combination of discernment, so that the person who says yes really wants to do this work. To work with the diocesan project team leader to review the goals of the grant and to assess the progress. To work with the diocesan project team leader to adjust strategies in response to progress and blocks to progress. We will, this is not a one size fits all process. And so, you know, things happen in real world time that invite us to be flexible in the way that we do things. There's when we talk about the congregational teams, the acronym is PVT. And so we like the idea of pivoting, that there's a lot of pivoting that comes in place here. Estimated time for the bishop, about 4 to 6 hours a month. Here's the part that maybe is most interesting to those of you on the call. Hopefully there's not too much a surprise here. A minimum of 4 people, 7 to 8 preferable, from within the diocese, staff, clergy, lay volunteers, who will be recruited based on the responsibilities below. Become resident experts on the project's expectations, and develop policies and procedures to ensure full implementation in a timely way. And so the team is really becoming the source for questions in the church and the churches. We are here to support and encourage you, but we really want the churches to see you as their go-to resources. To recruit 7 to 10 participating congregations, and we are certainly going to help you with that process. We'll talk a little bit more about that later today. To support and encourage and coach the participating congregations. We will walk alongside you, but like I said at the other bullet point, we really want you to be the resource for the churches. To create feedback loops so that learnings of the congregations are communicated to the diocese and to the larger church in creative and compelling ways. You may wish to recruit a communication liaison from within your group. So if there's somebody who really loves to make sure that what is happening in the diocese gets spread to the larger church and back to the churches themselves, we'd love to have that person doing this role. And I think this doesn't mean just the successes. You know, it's not just when everything goes right, but what are we learning in the things that aren't working? You know, what have we learned from an experiment that didn't turn out the way we thought it would, or a particular evaluation that is eye-opening to us, but not one that we really expected? How do we show that truth-telling and being real with where we are in the world is an important process? So meet at least monthly or more if the team discerns a need, and meet with the FaithX team as requested. Provide a review of progress every 6 months in collaboration with VIP congregations. And we will develop a template for that feedback so that you're not just wondering what it is we're looking for, probably in the form of a form stack email. So we will provide that necessary information. Any questions about these first two, the bishop's role or the team's role? All right. So the diocesan VIP team leader is the staff member or layperson who coordinates the work of the diocesan VIP team and who is invested in the process of encouraging congregational vitality. And it sounds like those people on this call are those people. To coordinate the work of the diocesan project leadership team, to serve as the interface with the bishop and FaithX, and to define and assign the pivot team members' roles in collaboration with the team. And we do have some suggestions for what those roles are, but to help educate those team members in that role. Ken, can you put the agenda up again, please?
Yes, indeed, here it comes.
So our timetable down here, if you could scroll down just a little bit, you can see the ground that we've covered so far. Thank you all so much for getting your materials in for both the congregational and judicatory vitality assessments and the information for MapDash for Faith Communities about your parochial reports. That stuff just has to happen in order for us to move forward within our timetable, and that did happen. And so we're really grateful for that. And Data Story is hard at work at getting this material together for us. And so if you look through here, you see that we will have our MapDash orientation on March 9th. And that will be recorded, which will be really important for you to go back as you have questions. You will probably have subsequent questions after that training, because one of the great things about that resource is that it's bigger than you think. There's more there than you can imagine. It's a little bit like the first time you walk into like Disney World or Disneyland or something. You know, you don't quite know where to start. There's so much there, and it's nice to have a resource that's that expansive and helpful. And so that will happen March 9th. In the meantime, this is the time to be recruiting your congregational teams, and to get that on that as soon as possible. I know that some of you already have some ideas, and we have a form stack available for you today to aid that process. And so Ken will talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We also will do the judicatory orientation on the 9th. So we have a 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, maybe a little break, and then a 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock for the judicatory orientation. And so by the 23rd of June, we would love for you to have your teams selected so that they can come online and participate in a conversation with us about what it means to be a team and the Vitality Improvement Program. We'll continue the Vitality Assessment. And as we move into the last quarter of our program year, the congregations will take the CVA, and we'll have some more team training with you all, because as we said initially, this is going to be very much a diocesan-led, FaithX supported program, because we want the churches to see you as their local resource and experts in this process, and that the diocese will also take the Vitality Assessment. We'll do some initial missional assessment and planning with congregations along the way as well, so that throughout the summer you have plenty to explore and play with. Anything I missed, Ken or Mary, or anything you all want to add to this?
I think just to clarify, it's an important part, but doesn't, you're not going to be seeing a lot of it until later in this year, is the judicatory vitality assessment. Part of this process is to develop a way for the judicatory to develop its own understanding of its own vitality and sustainability. And we hope to have that out in the fourth quarter, meaning April 1 through June 30th.
And what Steve called the judicatory orientation, the second hour of our time on March 9th, is for the congregational vitality assessment, the judicatory version. So, there's the version that folks can just go online and take, and then there's the one that you're going to have, which is why you gave us all the data that you did to create your dashboard. So yes, who would be attending that? All of you would be attending that. So, because you want to have some backup so that if only one person learns how to do MapDash or use the CVA dashboard, if that person is not available, you're going to have a problem. So you want your team to know how to use those resources, even if they aren't doing it all the time.
And Kirk, we have some questions. You'll see that we'll go over the form stack in a little while for the how to select and invite churches into this process. So we'll talk a little bit more about that very shortly. This is what we're asking. There may be things that you want to ask in addition that is part of your own discernment. So this isn't saying that you can't ask your own questions, but these are the questions that we see as essential.
I just saw in the chat from Mary Sularud, the new Bishop of Maryland is going to be consecrated, not concentrated, on September 16th. So that takes that date out of us, out of contention for them for the big meeting, for a big meeting. So we'll take a look and see what's happening in September, and we'll try and work around everybody's schedule.
Right.
These are just kind of blocked in so that you know the kinds of things that are coming. Oh yes, of course. First 2 weeks of April, I'd like to ask that we be sure to avoid Holy Week and Easter week. Maybe, and I'm thinking maybe even the week after. That, who knows, but we'll be sensitive to people's schedules. So the congregation selection process. This is where you, as the diocesan team, the diocesan VIP team, is going to identify and recruit 7 to 10 congregations. We have a questionnaire that we have developed for that. Rather than just run through all the questions and read them to you now, we developed this form stack, which will collect the information that is needed, and the response is from the different congregations. It has links to everything that they would need to do that. So this information will come to you and to us, and we will be looking it over, but it's really important that you all look it over, because this will help you discern who are the best candidates for your for your 7 to 10 congregations. And of course, we will walk right alongside you with that. If you have any questions along the way, just let us know and we'll jump right in. So basically, as I was saying, the adjudicatory VIP team is the one who will actually review and make the final selection decisions. You all, we're not the experts on your diocese. You are, and this entire process is built on the assumption that vitality is a systemic function. It's not just a congregation, but it's this congregation within its system. And so rather than introduce an outside person making the selection process for you, it needs to be worked through with the diocese and the congregations. So somebody was asking about the congregation selection criteria, and we spent a lot of time going back and over on this, Steve and Mary and I. We call them criteria, but they are basically advisory to you, and we tried to use should and must as a way to indicate the importance. But let me just run through them and see what you all think. So the first is that members in community should reflect a cross-section of race, language, and socioeconomic status, and we want to include historically under-resourced congregations as well. Must be willing to commit to active participation in the VIP project for all 3 years. You really want a congregation that can make that commitment, because if one drops out after the first year, it's really hard to go out and find a replacement for it and drop it in the second year. It just doesn't work. So we're looking for that kind of commitment. So the congregation must be willing to recruit a 7 to 10 member parish vitality improvement team that would meet monthly to develop and implement the vitality improvement program / plan for the congregation with the help of the diocese and FaithX. Must be willing to commit to work towards increased vitality and sustainability, making necessary changes and committing necessary resources for maximum impact. Then must be willing and able to raise $750 a year participation contribution as a sign of congregational commitment. Again, this is something that we went over in our thinking and our experience with working with congregations and dioceses before, is that there really had to be some participation fee or participation contribution for people to really engage fully in it. And so we tried to make it pretty reasonable for congregations, $750 a year. Must not be engaged in a major conflict. Now, all congregations are always in some kind of conflict. Somebody in the congregation is in conflict with somebody else. And there's often minor decisions about, philosophy and approach and strategy, et cetera. But, but we're talking about things that are basically like about to split the congregation. So you do not want to have that. I mean, not saying that they can't become vital again. It's just kind of outside the scope of our project. And you need to deal with that issue first before dealing with improving vitality. Must not be at great financial risk. It's sort of similar to the above that I just mentioned. But also the commitment of 3 years. If it's a great financial risk, odds are that's tied into its vitality and sustainability, and it's going to make it very hard. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be in any financial risk, but you don't want one that's right on the edge of closing, especially since one of the things that we've talked about before is that we really would like the diocese to use the tools that we're providing with their entire, with all of the congregations of their diocese. And so you might want to look at the time, this 3-year period, as a kind of a pilot test of this for your diocese. And one of the things that's really critical on a pilot test is that it can is that you don't want to have a failure in the pilot test. So you want to make sure that you have a good opportunity to succeed so that other people can come in behind. And must not be in danger of being closed within the next 24 months. So those are the criteria.
And could you review again the size criteria?
Yeah, the size criteria is we've gone back and forth on this. The guidelines has been 30 to 50 roughly in terms of general guidelines. Once you get under 25, 30, 25, whatever, that begins to be more and more of a risk of failure. At the upper end, we're trying to make sure that we're focused on small congregations, because that is the heart of what we're doing. So we're talking about ASA of 30 to 50, 30 to 55, 25 to 55. You decide, you make the case. But we want it to be focused on small congregations and the ability to have a maximum impact. And so those are our guidelines.
So Julie reminds us that it was initially 30 to 50, but then we did expand it from 30 to 70.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. So
yeah, we didn't make it lower, just so everyone is clear about that. We didn't, because I saw somebody said, a church with 5 people, that is too low. Yeah.
Someone says, I'm curious about the 7 to 10 members for churches with 30 people. We're talking about a third of the congregation. That may be a tough ask. Well, you and the congregation will know what the congregation can do. We're suggesting 7 to 10 because that will make the work easier in terms of the various responsibilities and bringing different people with different gifts and skills into the process. But for a very, very small congregation, 7 to 10 may be a big ask. Maybe you can do 5, maybe you do 6. But
May I say something?
Yes.
So one of the things I would say, in addition to that, though, is if you've got a relatively small congregation, this is a great opportunity to evaluate priorities and to think, is there something we can let go of so that this actually becomes kind of our congregational MO for the next 3 years? We really are focusing on this and making this our chief focus and priority. And in my experience, that shifts the understanding. It has to do with the tone of the recruitment, I guess. And to say that it is difficult, but maybe this is a turning point in terms of saying we actually want the growth and the vitality of our church to be important enough that we're willing to let go of some of the fluff that a lot of our volunteers are caught up in, or we can streamline some of our meetings, or we can do this or that in order to make a little bit more space. So I just want to encourage, yes, we can go lower in terms of team members for small churches, and what would it be like to actually ramp up to that number? What would it cost you? What are the opportunities in that?
I do know some small congregations that it would be hard to keep it under 10. Because people are so focused on their vitality at the particular point in time. So yeah, I mean, this really needs to be the focus. I mean, other than evangelism and spreading the word of God and all that, this needs to be a major focus to get to get the congregation in a better position to do what it does and what it's called to do in a more healthy way. Other questions? Hearing none, let's go back and look at what's next on the agenda. So it's time for QA and discussion.
All right, maybe could you stop sharing your screen?
Yep, I was already
Heading that way.
heading that way. My cursor wasn't responding.
So I saw one other question that I don't think we've, Kirk said, my biggest concern will be to evaluate the church's capacity to really engage and live into the work and process. Any thoughts on that?
Can I speak to that quickly, Mary, just to
Sure.
help explicate what I'm getting at? When we announced that we had been, we were selected to participate in this grant, I got lots of emails. I got emails when the program was announced, even before we had decided to apply, from churches saying, "We want in. Will you apply?" And it's wonderful. I love to see the enthusiasm. I love to see the interest in churches in trying to find a path to vitality and discerning who God is calling them to be for now and the future, as opposed to who they have been. My concern, and knowing a few of the churches or clergy who inquired of me about this, is these are folks who are maybe prone to latch on to whatever they think is going to fix their problems for them and be the magic bullet that restores them to life and health and all things as they used to be in 1970. And so I obviously have some experience with this and something of an innate sense and knowing some of our churches and clergy well. Even so, I'd be curious if you have any recommendations to how do we help to sift through what presents to us as great enthusiasm to participate, but to discern what is enthusiasm versus what is the actual capacity and commitment. And you built in some of that into it by making a financial commitment, by committing in a, sort of like a written contract with the application to participate and commit the human resources. But if you have any other tricks for differential diagnosis here, that would be great.
Well, I'll jump in here, and then Ken and Steve can offer what they would like. But obviously, you on the ground may choose to go further than the written application and have some conversations, right, with folks. And so one of the questions that I would ask to try and get at that would be, and maybe we might even think about adding this to the form. Tell us about a time when you saw a project similar to this through to completion, and what were the results? or saw a big congregational project through to completion, and what were the results? So to ask a little bit about the history to get at, we know from like a behavioral interview that past behavior does point to future behavior. So if there's not a lot of examples of things that are completed with results to show, or learnings, it doesn't have to be positive results necessarily, but learnings, then that would kind of help you get to that point, I think. Ken or Steve?
Yeah, I think that this is more than just sending out the form to people and getting the response. I mean, part of what we did before we started recruiting dioceses was to give a fair amount of information about how much work it was going to be, and the kind of commitment that you needed to make. And so we started with 29 dioceses interested in this, and as it became clear to them how much work that they had to do, some of them said, we can't do that this year. Maybe if you offer it again, we'll do it then. Some people just said they just don't have the bandwidth, et cetera. And so people started doing their own screening, based on our informing them of what was involved. But I think that the key thing is that improving vitality is hard work, and it's a journey. The reason this is 3 years is because it's like turning a battleship. When you're trying to improve vitality, you're trying to change behavior, both individual and congregational behavior, and that's hard. And the reason it's 3 years is because it takes that long to really see some serious results of the kinds of vitality interventions that we'll be doing. Does that help, Kurt? Steve, you want to add?
Yeah, the one thing I would add, or two things I would add. One is there's a quote that I really like to use by Walter Burkhardt, who was a Jesuit monk, and he says, the contemplation is really taking a long, loving look at the real. And so the first thing I want to say is that a lot of this process is about taking that long, loving look at the real. What is the reality of our current situation? And what does our current vitality look like? And the other question is to spend some time unpacking with the churches that you're talking to. What does vitality mean to them? What does that look like? Because it's not going to be the vitality from 1973. It's not the same word, doesn't mean the same thing that it meant then. But what does it mean to them? And then why is it important? So what does it mean and why is it important? Those are just two really good questions to help unpack the notion of vitality. And Andy, I see your question about clergy transition. And I think that's one of the reasons why a diocesan support team is really important, as well as bishop support, because those are givens. I mean, people are going to leave for lots of reasons, and some might be tragic and sudden, but is there a diocesan support to continue this process and support the church in those transitions?
Yeah, obviously, ideally, you'd like to have some sense that there's not a plan for someone to be leaving in the next 3 years. But things, as Steve said, things do happen. And sometimes, it could even be the process that ends up helping someone to move on. That wouldn't be the first time that I've seen that happen in the midst of some vitality work, where maybe the clergy person was more invested than the people, or vice versa, and it was apparent it was no longer a good fit. So those sorts of things will happen. Are we okay with having parishes in transition between clergy participate? So Northern California says they're okay with it. They want to know if we're okay with it.
Well, and I think that the key to that is that it's the lay people who are invested on the team are going to have to be even more focused if you know that you're in transition. But I don't see any a priori reason to rule them out.
I think the only question would be clear that the people on the VIP team don't have responsibility for looking for a new clergy person.
Exactly.
Right? Like they have to have separate responsibilities.
I mean, and ideally, you probably would not want somebody who's in their first year at the congregation, for example. This person still getting their feet on the ground. You might want to look for somebody who has at least a little experience in the congregation.
Okay, so Julie also asked about could we share the parish team responsibilities during this recruitment phase? So they're clear about the work they'll be doing and the skills they need to bring.
Mary, you'll have the application form after this call as soon as we send the slides, and the link will be in the slides.
Exactly. So I think then during the recruitment phase, during this time, the team members, so it's not just the VIP lead or the staff person who's in contact with congregations to say, okay, you're interested in being a part of this, here's the application, having follow-up conversations. Everyone on the team could be part of that process. And then certainly in reviewing the applications and talking through which congregations you want to select would be a process for the team. Steve, Ken, other thoughts about that right now? The role of the team at this point?
I would just say go back and look at the links for the roles. There are defined roles on the same that'll also be available to you. Where we had the diocesan team responsibilities, there's some really good information there about what does it mean to be a team leader for a congregation, a communication liaison. What does it mean to be a member of the team? What does it mean to be the priest from a participating congregation? And so those are ways of helping churches make sure they understand what we're looking for, what we're hoping for with regard to this process.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke about that, Julie. Is that what Julie, raised your hand? There you are.
Yeah, that's what I was asking for, because
Right.
You walked through the other ones, but then you didn't walk through that one.
Yeah, it's on the same link, so you can click down.
And is that on your website?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's all I
Would
needed.
it be helpful to just go over them now?
Why don't we? We have time, certainly. We can.
Sure. All right.
Steve, do you still have that page open?
Let me see.
I can
Go for it, Ken. I do not have it open.
All right. Am I still sharing? I think I need to.
No, you're not sharing right now.
All right. So here we go. So the last four on this is on the website under roles and responsibilities, VIP roles and responsibilities. So the parish team, the parish pivot team, well, here we've actually reduced the number from a team of 4 to 6. So
you can have anywhere from 4 to 10 people.
there you go.
Many hands make light work.
It depends on whether Ken wrote it or Steve wrote it.
Yeah, basically what I'm usually thinking of when I'm thinking of a team is that you need enough people so that you can sustain good discussion and different points of view, and you need few enough people so that everybody can be involved. And so that usually hits its optimum, right around 7, 8, 9, but it certainly can work different ways. So you're looking for a representative cross-section, and it's going to be, as Steve already mentioned, implementing the goals, purposes, design, and the anticipated outcomes. So they're going to be committing to serve as local leadership for the Vitality Improvement Program. They're going to provide information requested to the diocese by the diocese in a timely way. They're going to use the information received from the diocese and from FaithX to assess the gifts, opportunities, and challenges of the local congregation. And over the course of this program, the congregation then begins to assess and discern and explore what real world opportunities they have for increased engagement and vitality, based, of course, on what they're receiving and what they're learning from the diocesan cohort. And that's another thing that we should probably put a tack in, so that people understand it, is that we are viewing this as a cohort within the diocese, and we are going to be suggesting that you have ways of the entire cohort sharing information, what they're learning, what works, what doesn't. Under the leadership of the team, the congregation then starts to try on some new behaviors and practices that lead to new experiments in vitality. And we use the experiments really advisedly, because right now, people are saying, what will fix us? What's the answer? Well, there really isn't at this point. We were our points of view about church, our paradigms of church, were already under stress before we hit COVID. And COVID has really thrown most of them out the window. And so at this point in time, what we really need is to people have a clear vision of where they want to go and the willingness to really experiment. So how much time is required? We're looking at roughly 4 to 6 hours a month. And of course, this will vary from month to month, depending on the opportunities your team chooses to explore and the specific expectations of the VIP project at that time. And we envision the team meeting once or twice a month. And so the responsibilities are to discern, develop, and implement goals, strategies, and action plans discerned by the team with input from the congregation. Assess progress on goals and delineate responsibilities. Fully implement the expectations of the program. Recruiting more help from the congregation as needed, and meet at least monthly if or more if the team discerns a need. The pivot team leader, you've put a lot of thought into this, Steve, so why don't you take this one?
So the pivot team leader coordinates the work of the pivot team overall, serves as the main point of connection with the diocese and with FaithX. This next bullet point is important because a lot of people want to know, what is the characteristics of this person? What do we need to look for in a team leader? Not just somebody who says yes to all the jobs, but is this a person who's both detail oriented and has the ability to see the big picture of what is happening with the team and in the church and community? So can they both be involved in the nitty gritty and be able to kind of take the 10,000 foot view as well? That's important. The team leader doesn't have to do everything. The team leader doesn't really have to work harder than everybody else, but needs to be able to kind of help be seen as the person who organizes and helps the process happen. So another key part is being willing to share leadership with the team and invite the team's gifts into the process. We also hope that it's not really mentioned here, but that at some point the church begins, the team begins to increase the circle and invitation into the church itself. How are they bringing other people along, saying, you don't have to sign up for the team, but we could really use your help on this particular piece. So how is the team beginning to increasingly invite other people into the opportunities of the team? The communications liaison, which is mentioned as on the diocesan level, is also really important here. We want this person to be on the team and to energetically and creatively communicate across media. And we just want that to be as energetic and fun as possible to the church, the cohort, and diocese the work of the VIP team. So whatever creativity looks like for someone, and it could be, it doesn't have to be lots of bells and whistles, but how are you getting the word out through multiple streams of invitation and communication? And then invite participation from the church and community on behalf of the team.
All right. And just as with the diocesan level team, just as the bishop is going to be important in that process, the rector or priest in charge is also going to be crucial to the success of the initiative. Not by driving it, not by doing all of it, but facilitating it happening and supporting it happening and not interfering with it happening. So a rector in charge actually, a rector or priest in charge might actually meddle too much. There's always that possibility. So the responsibilities include meeting with the pivot team monthly, supporting the pivot team leader in facilitating the work of the team, and actively encouraging the leadership and gifts from those on the team. Being that kind of a welcoming and inviting presence. Working with the pivot team leader and the diocesan team leader to review program goals and assess progress. Work with the pivot team leader to adjust strategies in response to progress and blocks to progress, and create space, and this is really important, create space in the congregation structure to notice and name and nurture what the congregation is learning and accomplishing through sermons, through vestry meetings, through video communications, through written communications in the diocese. Two things. One is somebody once told me that the role of a good leader in a project like this is somebody who can be the bow of the ship. To kind of push the big waves out of the way, so that the other people can do their work without getting swamped. So need to be thinking of it in those terms. And this kind of goes to a question that was asked earlier. In a congregation that's operating without a rector or a priest in charge, a lay leader with sufficient authority to fulfill the responsibilities and make the commitments on behalf of the congregation can serve in this role. So thoughts about that?
Yeah, questions from those details?
Again, you'll have both the slides, quote unquote, from this presentation. Very quickly, you'll have those, and then the video has to be processed first, but you'll also get that.
All right, so anybody who missed our time together can watch that. Okay. Well, you all know how to find us. Well, the team leaders know how to find us. Julie asked if her team could have a breakout here as we wrap up. And I guess probably you and me and Steve want to chat for a few moments. So
Sure. Let's see. I don't think I've done that before.
well, if we let everyone else leave, it'll make it much easier. So we're going to say thank you so much for your time. The next time that we'll be together will be March 9th. You'll hear from us to get the application form, the story map from today, the video, and be in touch with you about any other questions or process needs that you have. And then you will, of course, hear from us with a Zoom link for the 2 meetings on the 9th of March. So with that, I'm going to say, as my husband would say, we're going to cut you loose and let you get on with your day, give you a little extra time back. Right. Thanks so much for your time and attention. It's good to be with you.
Ken, will you stop the recording, please?
Yep.
Yeah. Northern California folks can stay on.
Now, I think I may have figured out how to do this.
Yeah. You just go to the breakout rooms and you can do a manual assignment.
Or let Julie be the host.
Well, but we're gonna stay on for a few
Oh,
minutes.
we're gonna stay on, okay.
Okay. So assign.
We can let ourselves out.
Okay. So 49ers rule, right? That's one of the team.
No, she's actually in Pennsylvania,
Oh,
but we appreciate the support.
oh, okay. So you can, so let's see, who I still have on it is okay.
Dwayne, you also were finished. You can head on with your day.
Okay.
Okay,
So I see Bob. Oh,
anybody who doesn't work for you is here. Oh, and it's still recording also.
Here, I'll get it.